Service friends, I'm Orpheus Praxis and welcome to my channel. I bow with deep reverence before the flawless Buddha, the unsurpassed philosopher who taught us the principle of interdependence. There is no cessation and no arising, no destruction and no permanence, no coming and no going, no difference and no identity. In this complete calming of mental fabrications lies the supreme bliss. To you, the greatest teacher among the enlightened ones, I offer praise. What exists never ceases to be. What does not exist never comes into being. The basis of these two states is clearly seen by those who perceive essence. This is from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 16, translated by V.S. Semensov. May this listening bring you clarity and peace.
What if everything you thought about the end of life and what comes next was fundamentally challenged by pure logic? Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into the very nature of consciousness with Apris and B. Battinen's 4 Bardos of Consciousness. That's the third part of their really groundbreaking work on reincarnation.
Yeah, and it builds directly on what came before. You really need that foundation.
Absolutely. Their earlier research, starting with Madhyamaka Prasangika, which is, well, a philosophical approach focused on rigorous logical deconstruction, it established this radical idea. Consciousness doesn't just poof, vanish at death.
No, it transitions.
Yeah.
Seamlessly, they argue.
Right.
And what's fascinating is how they built on that.
Yep.
In the second part, Axiomatics of Implicative Reincarnation, they introduced this really rigorous axiomatic model.
Using math and logic.
Exactly. Using mathematics and logic, they demonstrated that for any living being, death and then a subsequent new birth are implicative, which basically means logically inevitable.
Logically inevitable. Wow.
Yeah. And this powerfully suggests that a complete, stop of consciousness or some static end state like a traditional nirvana, heaven or hell, well, it's just not logically possible within their framework.
Okay, so this is where the model really connects to your personal journey listening in. This third part, 4 Bardos of Consciousness, takes those foundational ideas and offers a precise logical model describing the states of consciousness a living being experiences. And, crucially, how they maintain continuity across a whole sequence of lives.
And it even speaks to that first-person perceptual experience, which makes it incredibly relevant, like you said.
So our mission in this deep dive is to explore these 4 fundamental states, which they call Bardos, essentially, distinct phases of conscious experience, and the really powerful implications of how we transition between them.
Okay, let's dive in.
Right, here's where it gets really interesting. According to Press and Battinen, you and every living being, you're always in one of these 4 specific states of consciousness. Always.
No exceptions in their model.
3 of these belong to what they call the Bardo of life, and then there's one crucial transitional state.
Okay.
So first, there's the Bardo of wakefulness. Pretty straightforward. That's your everyday, conscious, active state. From, conception right up until death or a fatal illness kicks in.
Your baseline reality, basically.
Exactly.
And then things get a little less linear, perhaps. The Bardo of dream sleep, for instance. Now, this isn't just about your nightly dreams.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it actually encompasses a pretty wide spectrum of altered states. Think hypnosis, hallucinations, maybe psychoses, even certain kinds of meditative trances.
So what's the common thread there?
The key thing is the presence of internal mental content, thoughts, images, whatever, that doesn't align with your current sensory reality. You're experiencing something mentally that isn't actually happening externally.
Got it. Okay, so if that's the active internal mental realm, what about when our minds seem to, power down completely?
That brings us to the Bardo of dreamless sleep. Think deep, really deep, uninterrupted sleep. Or states like fainting, general anesthesia, maybe even a coma.
Right, where there's just nothing, perception-wise.
Exactly, an absence of conscious perception. But, crucially, a normal exit from this Bardo brings you back to wakefulness.
In your current body.
Yes, in your current body, and importantly, with your memory intact. You wake up, and you're still you.
Okay, so we have these 3 states within a single life cycle. Wakefulness, dream sleep, dreamless sleep. But what happens when that life ends? What's the bridge to the next one if this flow is truly continuous, like they argue?
That bridge is precisely the 4th state, the Bardo of Death. This is the singular, non-life transitional state.
The only one outside the Bardo of life.
Correct. And here's the pivotal point. It inevitably leads to a new Bardo of life.
In a new body.
In a new body, yes. This means consciousness. When a being dies, while in any of the Bardo of life states, wakefulness, dream sleep, or dreamless sleep will transition here to the Bardo of death.
And from there?
From there, inevitably, to a new life. A key logical deduction from their whole model is that a living being cannot logically exist outside of these four described bardos. You're always in one.
Wow.
And they don't just, hand wave this, they back it up using formal logic like predicate logic, Boolean functions, even probabilistic estimates to model these transitions.
Making it almost predictable.
In terms of the transitions, yes. For instance, they show the probability of transitioning from dreamless sleep back to wakefulness, just waking up normally, is essentially 100%.
Okay, makes sense.
Similarly, the probability of transitioning from any Bardo of life state to the Bardo of death upon the body's demise, also 100%. And then from the Bardo of death to a new Bardo of life, again, 100%. It's presented as a necessary logical sequence.
This highlights two really critical distinctions for you, the listener. First, while the Bardo of dreamless sleep brings you back to your current body with memory, the Bardo of death leads to a new body and, crucially, no memory of the previous life.
That's the core difference between those two loss of consciousness states. One returns you here, the other sends you onward, blank slate.
Which is fascinating because if memory doesn't transfer, what then truly constitutes you across these different lives? That's a huge question.
It is a huge question. And Prasangika would argue it's the underlying flow of consciousness itself that persists, not the specific personality, the memories, or the identity tied to one particular life.
So you becomes this continuous stream rather than a collection of memories.
In a way, yes. It reframes what you fundamentally are. And their work, because of this logical structure, strongly argues against the idea of consciousness just completely ceasing after death.
Why? What's the main argument against cessation?
Well, partly it's the internal logical consistency of their model. If the transitions are 100% probable, there's no off-ramp for consciousness. They also point to things like the observed increase in the total number of living beings over time, suggesting new streams aren't just appearing from nowhere. And fundamentally, a static final end state just doesn't fit the dynamic cycle their logic describes.
Right, the flow has to keep flowing, basically.
The flow of consciousness is maintained, they argue, throughout all these states, even the transitional Bardo of death.
So let's try and synthesize this. Priss and Battanin offer a logically consistent and, they'd argue, empirically supported model. It meticulously defines these states of consciousness and their transitions, including that profound journey through what we call death.
It provides a formal, almost scientific-like roadmap for understanding the continuity of consciousness. You mentioned it's even designed to be potentially understandable by AI, which is pretty cutting-edge thinking.
Definitely. So, connecting this to the bigger picture then, this model lays out a kind of relentless cycle. Bardo of life to Bardo of death, inevitably leading to a new Bardo of life.
Rinse and repeat, in a manner of speaking, though without the memory carrying over.
Okay, so here's the final thought for you listening. Knowing that your consciousness, according to this model, is always in one of these states, and that the Bardo of death inevitably leads to a new life, but without the memories of the last one. What implications does that have for how you view the unfolding story of existence, and maybe your own place within it? What really stands out to you from this idea of a truly, logically inescapable journey of consciousness?
There is much to reflect on, and let these reflections continue in silence, where the mind lets go of patterns and only pure seeing remains, until we meet again in the space of understanding. Subscribe to walk this path together with us. I am Orpheus Praxis, wishing you all clarity. Namaste.